All right, let's dive in. I'm going to jump in and share my screen, and we will get started with the third part of our series, the CFO Summit. If you haven't watched the first two, I would encourage you after this to go and make a point of that. I think that it will help give context for where we're going to start today, which is we are now going to focus more in the midst we are in the middle of a plan. There's a plan that exists. We have created it. We have had our board budget bonus approval meetings. We know the operating plan that the organization is running off of, and we are finding ourselves deviating inevitably off course. If you've listened to any of my content around forecasting, you will know that I believe that every forecast we've ever built has been wrong. And it is not useful in its rightness. It is useful in its ability to see that wrongness. And so today we're going to discuss a little bit about what is required to get your forecast back on track and why it is so important that you act with urgency and immediacy to early indications that you are veering off course, and how that happens. So today we're going to be discussing how to get your January forecast back on track. Starting off, I just want to thank all of our sponsors, Fulfill, TaxCloud, and ChargeFlow, all three of which contribute in different ways to helping our mission of helping brands achieve predictable, profitable growth. Fulfill, you, I'm sure, have heard much about in our industry, but they are helping to solve what I believe is the underlying problem in our industry as it relates to bringing the center of your product universe into the focus of the organization as the heartbeat of the data center. TaxCloud helping us to solve some of the very continually annoying issues related to sales tax in our organization. So all three of these folks are partners of ours that we really value and help to bring this content to life in various ways. So thank you to them as we get started. Here's the thing. As you plan for 2026, now's the time to take a closer look at your financial systems and make sure they can scale with you. For a lot of e-com brands, sales tax is still one of those areas that feels harder than it should be, especially if you're relying on a legacy provider that's unreliable, overpriced, or overcomplicated. TaxCloud takes a different approach. They're the trusted sales tax compliance partner for Shopify brands, taking care of registrations, filings, and ongoing compliance so you don't have to. Get back to focusing on growth. Visit taxcloud.com/thread. That's taxcloud.com/thread. Chargebacks are becoming a real margin problem for e-commerce brands. Fees are climbing, dispute volumes are rising, and most teams don't have the time or the headcount to keep up. ChargeFlow solves that. It's the only fully automated chargeback platform built for e-commerce growth. Every dispute is created and submitted for you using AI, real-time order data, and insights from over 15,000 merchants. Brands use ChargeFlow to recover more revenue, cut hours of manual work, and protect cash flow without slowing down fulfillment or adding staff. If you're planning for a stronger financial operation in 2026, visit chargeflow.io/request-demo. The following message is brought to you by our sponsor, Fulfill. Are you still waiting until the end of the month to find out how your business is actually performing? Juggling Shopify, Amazon, your warehouses, accounting software, and multiple spreadsheets just to reconcile your payouts? Still guessing at inventory valuations? Fulfill gives you real-time financial visibility across your entire operation. We're talking real-time P&L, automatic payout reconciliation, and actual inventory valuations. Everything from your sales channels to your warehouse and books in one system. So you can make decisions today, not next month. Fulfill is built specifically for e-commerce brands that have outgrown their Frankenstein stack of tools you've been duct taping together. Get the financial clarity you need to scale. Learn more at fulfill.io. That's fulfil.io. The January reality check. You built a plan. Hopefully you are here because you have participated in some of the previous sessions and are now eagerly engaging in the process of building a plan within your organization, and then trying to manage to that expectation. Hopefully you are here because you have built not only an annual plan, not just a monthly plan, but have broken it down into daily expectations of the key indications of the health of your organization. And here we sit on January 21st, and likely you are not on plan. Maybe you're ahead of plan. Maybe you're behind plan. Maybe there's some way in which there's a gap to the expectations that you had, which is certainly a part of the process. So today, we are going to deal with that reality. The fact that you built a plan and the numbers are not lining up. And what I want to suggest to you is that the problem isn't the miss. The miss is going to exist. It will always be true that there is a gap, a distance between the actual reality and the plan that you created for your organization is a perpetually present truth. It is your forever dance partner, as I like to say. That gap is what you must mind at all times. But the problem isn't just that. It's the lag between the signal and action. It is the deficit between your reality of the miss and the actions in response. Now, there are all sorts of reasons why that gap exists between the signal and the action, not just between the plan and the reality, but the gap that we're here to be more concerned with is the gap between signal and action. It's how quickly you were able to identify and what you did in light of it. And that is really the first thing I want us to discuss. And we're going to use a story today of an actual illustration of a customer to walk through how the system that we've created helps to ensure accurate forecasting in a business that can run as predictably as expected through a series of principles, less just about software or tooling and more about an approach, a methodology. And it begins with this first question. How fast can you diagnose the miss? How fast can you as an organization diagnose your gap to plan as a company? And how quickly is it visibly known for everyone? So what we're going to do today is we're going to use a real example as we go through these stories to sort of illustrate some of the points. And what I want to take us to first is this example here. There we go. Customer name hidden for anonymity. But what I want to illustrate to you is just how quickly we're able to identify regression or being off course. Now, I tweeted earlier in January that January is a tricky month because one of the things that happens is that, generally speaking, our engagement to problems is related to the days of the week. This is what I call the physiological limitation of humans, is that we are programmed to interact with data and work Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. Obviously, many of us sort of exceed that boundaries, but when a month begins on a Thursday or a Friday, it's a dangerous trap. I've watched it happen over and over and over in organizations where if the month begins later in the week, and then there's a weekend in the middle of it, we end up with 4, 5, 6 days before action and insight. And so I want to show you here at end of day Friday, the experience that we were having with this specific customer and how quickly we were able to see not only what was the overall deficit to our plan, but where specifically was it coming from so that we could diagnose and solve the problem. So here we are. It's January 2nd. Okay, the second day of the month. We've built an annual plan. We've broken it down to every day. We've built the marketing calendar. We've built every email send schedule. We've built every Facebook campaign. We have an awesome plan that we're going to go forward with as a group. But then we start the month, and right away, we find ourselves meaningfully off course. I like to say there's only 3 kinds of problems that you ever experience in the e-commerce business. There's a volume problem, there's an efficiency problem, or there's both. In this case, very quickly, what we're able to see is we walk through this, we call the hierarchy of metrics, moving from the most important indication of the health of our business down into the inputs of that output to help us identify quickly, which is it? Is it a volume or is it an efficiency problem? So right away, we can see that we have a deficit to contribution margin of about 20%. Contribution margin will always be the headline scoreboard of the thing that we are most after achieving. Okay. Then we move down to the second layer, which we call the business metrics. So you can see net sales. In this case, the definition that we're using for revenue is net sales plus shipping. You can see ad spend, MER. You could toggle this to call it ACoS. Some people like to refer to that average cost of sale or percentages marketing. You have your AOV, and then you have orders. And so when I say that it's you can distinguish easily between a volume and efficiency problem, you can see in this case, ad spend, we are spending within 1% of the expectation of the media, but we are 15% behind on the net sales. That's what leads to the contribution margin gap. So volume or efficiency problem, which is it? It's an efficiency problem. We're spending the volume of money, but we're not driving the efficiency. It shows up in MER. It shows up that your spend is at target, but your sales are behind. Now, if we go a layer deeper now, we can look at the customer level. We can see that returning customer revenue is 16% behind, new customer revenue 13% behind, and we're 12% behind our MER or AMER objective. So again, little additional health signals that we see we actually have gaps in both returning customer revenue and new customer revenue. Okay? We have both sides of the equation not yielding for us what we want. We can break this down all the way to the channel level to see the performance in the individual ad accounts. We can see where we might be overspending or underspending, how emails performing to expectation, Google, Meta, AppLovin, etc. All through that gives us an immediate indication of the lay of the land. So on day 2 of the month, against the annual plan for the year, and what I'll say is, it is the expectation of the people inside of our organization that they treat this day 2 miss with a level of urgency that illustrates the idea that maybe the whole plan is at risk if we don't act accordingly. If we don't move with a level of urgency against this visibility. So now that we diagnose the miss, there's a separate question, which is how committed are you to getting it right? And this is a cultural expectation for you as leaders, and I would say as CFOs. So if this is the CFO Summit, the reason I put this on you is because oftentimes my experience of the finance department is they want to distance themselves from the behavioral patterns of the plan and expectation that they've set. And this is often one of those gaps that I see between marketing and finance where there's the lack of control of the actions. And so you sit more in the seat of the evaluator of the team. I have this experience a lot when I see marketing and finance leaders speak to one another. There's this idea that I built a plan and now I'm evaluating your capacity to deliver it, versus us all setting a cultural expectation that we do the things we said we're going to do. That we don't allow for excuses in day 2 of the plan. That we think of these things as just hurdles to be overcome in accomplishing the thing that we said we're going to do. And I'm going to share this tweet from Max. Max is one of our growth strategists. He put this out just yesterday, and I thought it was a great phrase to internalize if we're going to build the kind of culture that accurately forecasts. That this is an exercise in culture and execution as much as it is in planning and tooling. So Max says this. He says, looking back at my favorite forecast from this past year at CTC, the precision I was able to achieve with Statless was almost absurd. In this example here, you can see a near perfect miss, 0.1% to revenue, 0.46% to contribution margin. You can see even the daily pattern of the revenue he nails in this process. And then he gives another example of the perfect hit, 0.4% to revenue, 0.02% to contribution margin. You're going to notice that when we think about the effectiveness of the effort is not about beating and going way beyond what we were trying to accomplish, because that would illustrate we didn't understand something about what the business could do. It is about doing what we said we're going to do. And he says single-digit basis points on millions in spend, but there's something more important here. When you're managing a brand, a forecast isn't a set-it-and-forget-it document. We missed some days. You can see it in the red during most of the sale moments, he points out here. We pivoted, we adjusted, every decision anchored to the goal. And this is the line that if you take away anything from this presentation, I want you to take with you, is that a forecast is only as good as a team's willingness to fight for it. We made the numbers happen. And if I could think about anything about the system of 12 years of trying to figure out how do you build a tooling and people to go out, set a goal and achieve a goal, this is what I've learned more than anything. That this is about a cultural expectation that you do what you say you're going to do and designing everybody committed to that reality for a period of time. Is that when we start the race, it's a 30-day sprint over and over in the cycles, is that we do not give up until the 30th day. Till we get to the end and we evaluate and we look back and we go, okay, why did it or did it not work? But when we're in the thing, we do not capitulate. We do not start adjusting. We do not start giving up. We do not start making changes to the plan. We say we are committed to an expectation, and now we're doing everything we can to go and make it happen. I'll give you an example. So let's go back to it's January 2nd. Okay, we're 2 days off. What does it look like to receive and interact with CTC in that process? So Brian Tkansky, who's the growth strategist on this individual account, shows up, and you can see here, we are now on. This is the Monday after those myths. So this would be 4 days into this gap. So Friday, he identifies it. And you'll notice that we communicate every single day. Every single day. We call it one map notes. Again, we're on a journey together. Every day we have to look at our map and say, how are we making progress? And we do it under this format. What? So what? Now what? What? So what? Now what? What is happening is just the facts. This is the restating of what you would see in your daily statless email, is to say, contribution margin is here. That's this % below forecast. It's a difference of this many dollars. Here's where we are on order revenue, ad spend, MER. So what does that mean? Now we're going to do a little bit deeper analysis of the facts. Where is that gap coming from? What are we learning about the different channels' performance? Now, what you'll notice, though, is that the longest section, the area that's most important in this whole message, is now what? What are you doing to resolve the deficit? And this is the section that every day you begin to build the expectation that somebody shows up in your organization with clarity of where they are at relative to where they said they were going to go, and that they can communicate to you what they are attempting to do to resolve that gap. This is the whole thing. This is what makes it magic, is that not that the tool itself can display that information for you, but that the signal of actions and then the obligation to go and solve them is illustrated clearly. So you can see sale duration confirmation. Can you confirm if we're ending the sale today or extending to tomorrow? Here's what we're doing to address the retention gap. We're updating this app 11 factor to make better decisions based on the most recent results. Scale high efficiency campaigns on Meta. Here's where we're taking those budget improvements. We're going to evaluate low performing campaigns during the seal period, tagging media buyers, creating action across a team of people. This is the orchestra conduction of the profit engineer. It's their job to ensure that everyone moves in rhythm and in sync towards the expectation. And when I say that this is a cultural reality for CTC, what that means is that people are on the hook and measured relative to their ability to do the thing they said they're going to do. So this is an example for all of our growth strategists. You can see we track their accuracy as forecasters across, I think, like 15 different metrics. We track our capacity as an organization across all of this. We do it we track the performance of every model type that we have. And what you'll see is that this is like a 6-month shot here, that we're talking about billions of dollars in revenue. You can see for this period of time, we've got $650 million of new revenue, $700 million of returning customer revenue, hundreds of millions of dollars of ad spend. And what you'll notice is, as an organization, 0.7% to spend accuracy. In terms of spending what we said we were going to spend, 0.7%. New customer revenue, always going to be the most difficult part of this whole thing, is creating the expectation. 8% to target, minus 8% on new revenue expectation. You can see the improvement over the previous periods. December, only 2.2% off. Returning customer revenue, much easier to forecast than new customer revenue. You'll see the variation or the width of the error bars. This is just like a general point about forecasting, is that it's always going to be harder to forecast your new customer revenue efficiency than it will be your returning customer expectation, plus 0.1% across over $1 billion in a 6-month window. You can see the range of expectation of individuals. And what you'll learn is that humans have dispositions that in some cases are more optimistic, in some cases are more pessimistic. But this is how we learn and can sit with them and can reconcile their deficits and improve their mistakes, is by understanding, hey, we're repeatedly seeing you overspend, underspend, over-optimistic, too pessimistic, whatever it might be. And you'll see that the best that we have are in a very tight band. We say that plus or minus 10% to target is our objective and goal for the standard of accuracy that we want. And you can see this show up because it's an expectation of the organization. We measure what matters and we deliver against that goal. So that's when I talk about it's a cultural thing. What I want you to do right now is I want you to stop and I want you to ask yourselves, what happens if you miss the forecast? What is the consequence in your organization for not doing what you said you're going to do? Is it acceptable? Is it okay to miss dramatically? Is it okay to say you're going to spend an amount of money and to spend more or less? Is it okay to give you a revenue target and be off course? Do you make allowances for it? Do you allow someone to come and say, well, the inventory was XYZ, or A, B, and C happened? Or is there 100% responsibility that says, the inventory, okay, I need to update my process because I should have had a consideration for the stock of our core SKUs. I should have asked questions to the supply chain team about when the delivery was happening, if it was on time or not. I should have checked with the campaign production team about the assets that we needed on that date. Every time, if we see each sudden unexpected change as a lesson to be learned and improved upon the system, then your system will improve over time. People will get better at the task. I'll give you an example of how that comes to life and how you create the capacity to fix problems. Is that what you learn about planning is that the way that you offset the risk of the unknown is to assume it will exist. You must begin by assuming that your plan will not work. And when you do that, what you begin to do in the background is you build contingencies. The plan for when the plan inevitably goes wrong. Give you an illustration. This is our calendar tool. So at the center of every forecast, a critically important part that you cannot build a financial plan and operating system for e-commerce without is your marketing calendar. It's a question of every day, what do you do? And it's a absolutely critical component of every plan that we build. So you can see in this example, we have a sale that was planned to run for the first 5 days of the month. Cellular reset 1 through 5. You can see that there was emails planned on the first, 2 emails planned on the second, no email on Saturday, an email planned on Sunday, and an email planned on Monday. 5-day sale to start the year. This is that brand. But we remember days 1 and 2, what happened? We were light, right? The expectation of the efficacy of these campaigns was lower than what we wanted. But remember that message, the now what, so what? Brian asks a question. He says, well, what are we going to do? Are we going to move forward with the potential sale extension? This thing that we kept in our back pocket to go, hey, if this doesn't work exactly how we want, will we step through the door of this potential extension? So in the calendar before the month even began, we placed there for us and we alerted everybody on the design team, the creative team to say, okay, hey, we're going to have this in our pocket in the event that it doesn't work. We're going to plan for the uncertainty or the inevitability of failure. And so if we go back, you can see that all of this gets planned. And now we have new tooling around making recommendations from AI about different opportunities to bring forward so that every month, everything is planned every day, every moment, every email, every SMS, every website change, every PR hit, every product release. It's all part of the plan that exists. So if we go back to that message, this is now the response that we get from the customer. Sale is extended through tomorrow. Are we clear to run the sale message via paid through end of day? Please confirm you have the channel set up appropriately based on the feedback. Yes, team, you should already have the last chance creative for the ads. Will do. Here's that extended sale email that goes out, and off we go. And what happens is immediately you get the resolution. You see that the day initially was planned on January 6th to have contribution margin of $8,248. But because of that extension, you more than 4x the expectation of contribution margin on that day. And by the 6th of the month, you now have contribution margin, sales, ad spend, MER, AOV, all back on track. From an event, that's how tight the feedback loops are, right? It's not wait till the 21st when the gap just kept getting wider and wider and wider. It's immediately 2 days in, make the adjustment. There's no time to waste in resolving the expectation. Then throughout the month, we also get this additional level of visibility down to every individual on the team. So this is what we call our Facebook campaign tracker. So what this gives us is the ability to see every campaign, every day's expectation of spend and efficiency, the overall expectation of spend and efficiency, recommended actions for every campaign based on their present state of performance. So you can see actions recommended by the system to increase the campaign budget based on the fact that it's ahead of efficiency and behind on spend. You can see pacing behind on spend, ahead on efficiency. No action necessary in some cases, depending on what's happening. Then we also get visibility, really important, to all of the decisions made by the buyer in the account. You can see how many ads have been created, what budget changes have been made, any ads paused, bids up or down. This is actually like quintessential textbook ideal CTC buying, is that there should only be changes to budget and new ads launched, no ads being paused, no bids being adjusted. This is a great signal that things are operating as intended. But we have these, what we call trackers tabs, for every channel. We have it for Meta, we have it for Google, we have it for email, we have it for Pinterest, anywhere that you are running. And you can see, I can toggle over every one of these little icons, see exactly what happened, what action was taken by who on what day. I can get a recommendation of the entire actions from the system. I can see every ad that was created, every adjustment, and I have every campaign that is live in the ad account, including those that are not yet live, but will be planned to go live later. So the granularity for every individual. So even though the media buyer on Meta only has a portion of a role to play within the context of the broader system, they still have visibility to every part of their job and how it relates to the achievement of the overall objective. I can see my target spend relative to my projected spend. So where am I at? I said I was going to spend 146,000. Where am I projected to spend? So this is the sum of the actual plus the future projected days. Then you can see my actual coming in relative to the projection and how close I am. So how much I should trust these future projections relative to what is actually occurring every day. I can see that for every single campaign that exists. I can see a set of recommended actions to go and take as a buyer to, again, drive me towards the overall objective of the organization. Every person on the team with clarity of action every day towards the thing that they're trying to accomplish. In addition to that, we also begin the month with an expectation of how much creative we need to support the Meta account, to support the financial objective. So as I build my financial plan, I get an output of exactly how many ads are needed, how many ads for each moment should be created, what evergreen pieces of creative I should focus on making for which product, and pacing. You can see how many ads we've created this month relative to this goal. So we're a little bit behind pacing, but this is one of the best creative score accounts that exists. You can see the insights generated strong, and ad stability and efficient spend scaling show solid foundation. The shop demonstrates excellent evergreen performance, ranking in the 75th percentile with 27% of ads running for 30 plus days. So you can see the ad concentration, the evergreen share, what percentage of the ads have been running for longer periods of time, how often ads don't get any spend, right? So all of these things help us get an indication of the job to be done. So whether you're the creative strategist, whether you're the Facebook media buyer, whether you're running the email and SMS program, we can understand exactly where we're at and where we're trying to go. So this is how in January, we can understand every day how fast we can tighten the loop to create these three things: clarity, accountability, and capacity. When these three align, forecasting becomes proactive, not reactive. And so if I want to achieve my 2026 goal, let's go back to that January 2nd moment. And I don't mean this to be frivolous in stating this. I genuinely believe that it's those loops at the very start of the process that ensure the achievement of the overall objective for the year. They're an indication that the organization is set up to behave in a way that you are ready to go out and accomplish the kinds of response to the inevitable challenges that will be necessary to get where you're trying to go. Because the only thing we know about every model we ever built is that they've all been wrong. So what does that amount to? Well, you can see it here. Here we are. Here we sit on January 21st. 25% ahead of contribution margin, 16% ahead of revenue, 7% ahead of spend, efficiency, AOV, and orders. And you can see the daily pacing every day since when we've gone in. Now, the other thing we get here now, right? Because again, I would actually argue that being 25% ahead of your contribution margin goal may not actually be ideal. I like to say, in the presence of excess profit, book future profit. How can we go out and potentially increase the new customer acquisition efficiency maybe even a slightly lower return to ensure we build the base of existing customers for future revenue. That's a decision that a media buyer can make in this moment in collaboration with the client and customer. But the point is, if you go back 3 days in, this was going off course. It was headed in a direction that was not going to lead to the desired result. But because we had the visibility, we were aware that we were behind the expectation of the early days of the promotion. We had the coordination, the expectation to show up every day and describe what you're going to do to resolve it. We had the buy-in from the customer about their willingness to make adjustments to the plan themselves, to provide the necessary creative, to adjust the email promotion, to extend it if necessary. You see that January 6th represents the course correction. Back on track, just like that. Now you're putting together a series of good days that stack against that expectation and improve the result. But this is how you get there. And so if we're on the 21st, it's not over. What I'll tell you is that there's no reason that your organization should think that you can't resolve this month's gap. And this is the thing I watch happen a lot, is there's a lie we tell ourselves about what we can affect in short periods of time. And what I would just encourage you to do is to reject any premise that leads to a lack of attempts to solve problems. There's something about the effort, the organizational effort to say, I said I was going to do this, and I will not stop trying to do this until the race is over, until I have finished and failed. At which point I will learn from my mistakes, I will apply them against future results, and I will work to fix them. But until that month is over, until the window has closed, you don't stop. And what you're looking for inside of your own organizations or in the partners that you have is, do you have people that are driving towards that resolution, or do you have people that are resistant to the obligation? And what I would just tell you, whether this is in CTC's own organization or every customers that I have, the best people I have ever interacted with are the ones that are in relentless pursuit of the possibility that they might get where they said they were going to go at all times. That there's people that you'll find that will come up with an eagerness to give you the reasons why it was wrong. And especially if someone else created the forecast, it's really easy. Then you start sort of getting real simple. Oh, well, they didn't know this, or this was unaccounted for. And I can sense it immediately in the growth strategists that I interact with or our customers, where very quickly they will assume these like acts of God, like there was just no way they could have ever had known X, Y, or Z would have occurred. And then there's people that are just uninterested in the excuse. And that there are people that will figure out, okay, what new thing can we launch? What could we try next? Where can we go to get there? And how quickly can I find an insight and can I drive an action? And it has to be organizationally true that when you see red, we call it the hunt for red October, right? Like, how do we find the second something's red, it actually irks my being. It drives me so insane that I have to resolve it. Or I actually have to at least understand that someone is trying to resolve it, knowing full well that not everything you try to do will work. But this clarity is that I'm going to provide the resource to our people, to our customers, to see the insight. And now we have the obligation to drive a corresponding action. Find the information, understand the deficit, respond. How quickly can you tighten those loops? Forecast, measure, learn, adjust. Forecast, measure, learn, adjust. Forecast, measure, learn, adjust. And the benefit that CTC has, and why I would just like contend that this system that we've developed is one that you should just simply adopt instead of trying to recreate your own in spreadsheets or anywhere else, is because we get to do this 200 times every month, 12 months a year, and we've been doing it for 10 years. So the amount of repetitions through this loop, forecast, measure, learn, adjust, forecast, measure, learn, adjust, forecast, measure, learn, adjust, we just get the benefit of failing at it and improving the system way more often, way more times. So if you go and you listen, what you'll start to notice, like you hear this on the Marketing Operators podcast. I heard this between two former employees, Andrew and Sarah, on his podcast. You'll start to notice that as people journey through this process of building a business, they come to the same conclusion. That it's not because we're smarter. I'll just tell you, it's like we are just repetitions out further than everybody else in terms of what you discover as you begin down this process. Someone sent me a tool yesterday called that they're building that's an attempt to understand, like, okay, we want to set goals, we want to create visibility to tracking, and off we go. And I can immediately see all the gaps that will come up as they encounter the problem, simply because we've run into all the problems and we're still encountering them every day. Do you know how hard it is to actually create accuracy around contribution margin, like as a financial metric inside of an organization? The idea that the underlying data structure for that is like easily accessible, is accurate, is trustworthy, is like an immense complex task. And every one of these things, whether it's the LTV models or the spend and AMER models or the calendaring effects, like all of those are complicated and subject to big errors that become smaller over time as you learn from your mistakes and improve them. So the January advantage, fix it now. Leave today and go back to wherever your organization is and wherever you are relative to the target, and just assume that it's possible. Just for the sake of remaining in a position of agency over your outcomes. And act for the next 10 days as if you could resolve the deficit that exists. To ask yourself, what is true? So what do we know about it? And now what are we going to do in light of it? And try something. Try something new and attempt to close it over the next 9 days. Turn your intuition into math. We're going to continue to provide more resources for you on this. There is an importance to setting realistic expectations that are achievable, because I do know that this thing that I'm describing, which is go back to your people and have them drive efforts towards an outcome that wasn't ever rooted in reality in the first place, will lead to burnout. Your people will fatigue and quit. Because if you give people goals, if I make you get under the bench press bar and I keep putting 3 plates on it and you can't even do 1, and I ask you to try, I say, try. We're committed to doing what we said we were going to do. You better make sure that they believed it was possible in the first place. There was consensus around the idea that we were doing good work to root ourselves in what is possible. And it may not have to be probable in the sense that it's the most likely thing to occur. It's not necessary that we forecast the 50th percentile outcome, but we have to help people to understand why we all agreed it was achievable in the first place, and make people who are obligated to the actions commit to the outcome, to believe in the place that you said that they're going, or to hold that belief for them and illustrate it with your own actions. So having good intuition and math underlying the expectations is critical. So as a CFO, what do you gain by behaving this way? Well, more than anything, it's predictable cash flow and real-time visibility to where you're at as an organization. Daily targets across revenue, contribution, and margin gaining channels. If we go back to this idea that, like, hey, most people run a 13-week cash flow forecast, which means one of the inputs to that, usually what I see is like revenue by week. Well, the question of how much you can trust that affects every decision that you make of when you're going to pay people, when you're going to place POs across every part of your organization. So the better you get at this, the more confidence you get in the expression of managing your own organization. You get daily targets across revenue, contribution, and all of your marketing spend. You get to see the impact of every marketing action and adjust in real time. And the most important thing is you begin to learn which inputs generate output. What units of growth affect the things you do. As you try to close gaps, this is really the magic, right? As you attempt to solve problems, you discover which actions lead to real impact and which don't. And that's why this is so important, is that the first time you try to close a gap, you may go do something and find that it has no effect, that you actually made up no revenue. You went in and you cranked up the App 11 spend, and that spend and degradation curve fell off a cliff and contribution margin got worse. That's as equally important of a lesson as is the one that resolves it. Because what you're building is a tool belt. You're building a set of possible choices every time the problem arises that you can take as a business to start to solve it. All of this modeling we do for you, our data science team is growing all the time. We now have almost as many engineers at CTC as we do media buyers. And what that means is that we're constantly both building and updating our marketing calendar models, our event effects, our spend and AMER models, our retention curves, holding them accountable, making adjustments, figuring out ways that we can improve the efficacy. And then what I'll really tell you is that you've heard me probably talk about Sean's, this idea of software-enabled agencies, my belief that service and software are collapsing together. And if you need an illustration of this, The team at Ready Set, which is an agency that exists on the creative side, just launched a product called AirPost. Okay, go read John's post about the launch of AirPost, and you'll hear the description, which is that these tools in and of themselves are really nothing. They sit there waiting to be used, waiting to plug into an overall set of accountability inside the operating system of an organization. And then you need humans. You need people to show up every day and to bring the tool to life and to affect change. Even if it's agentic, even if it's AI, you need the capacity for somebody to sit in the center of it, to put their hand up and say, I will take accountability for the end outcome, and I will show up every day and ensure we are driving towards it. And that's what our profit engineers do. That's what we want to be. So we want to be that partner that is accountable to you for the result of the thing we said we're going to do. And then we want you to trust that every day we're going to measure the entirety of our organization against those expectations to support you in that effort. So the modeling done for you, the execution done with you. It's not likely that we're going to do every part of it. There's going to be roles for you and your team to play. And the easiest way I like to think about the best function of those roles, if I could offer you anything about organizational design between the best partners that I see work in our space, is that there's two rhythms to the marketing and e-commerce operations rhythm. There's the day-to-day, every short-term thing that needs to be resolved to close the gap today. But if you're on that hamster wheel, you're going to miss a bigger thing, which is that there's a second rhythm. It's the longer rhythm, the one that focuses on building the peaks, the model breaking moments months from now. It's the new product development. It's the big partnership between Bose and Skullcandy and the cool campaign that surrounds it. And the best organizations and partners that we work with, they're working on that rhythm. They're saying, okay, we will go out to April, to July, to September, to design the new product, to build the new campaign, to find that licensing deal, that partnership, that moment that will allow you to seed the expectation where whatever the model thought we were going to do, the extrapolation of the history of this business gets broken to the upside. And so giving someone space for that kind of work is enabled by allowing them to turn the brain off to the present, because you've got a partner that you know has a system that's trusted, that's going to deliver it for you based on those results. So that's how I'd encourage you to think about it. Your internal team should be working on those peaks, the things that drive disproportionate value, that have massive potential return, that are going to deviate and alter the trajectory and course of your business in entirety, because we won't do that. And I've never met an agency who develops the new product ideation for your organization, who comes up with that big campaign. I'm sure they're out there, but it's not what I see most service providers offering. And instead, what we could live in is next month, there's a 30-day cycle, and every day it requires action. Every day it requires change, and we will take a responsibility to define that organizational expectation, then ensure that every day we are driving towards the achievement of it. So that's what we have for you today, is an illustration of three things that if I could just say them back that you take away with you, it's that clarity, accountability, and capacity are the key to accurate forecasting. And if you're sitting here today on January 21st and you're off course in any way, shape, or form, there's some gap to whatever present reality would say, do not let go of the accountability. Go seek out clarity, figure out who has the capacity, or maybe even just the willingness, the courage to try, to put their hand up and say, I think this might help us get closer to the result that we stated, and see how fast you can execute it. And one of the things I'll say, and this is like leaders, we have to wrestle with this constantly, is that you can do more than you think you can do. People can produce more faster when given the expectation and clarity that the result isn't optional, that we just find a way. We find a way to move closer to the goal. And maybe you won't get all the way back, but maybe you'll go from -8% to -3%. And that's going to give you the chance that the next time you get to +3%, now all of a sudden you're back on course. So every little improvement towards the overall expectation matters a lot. And while I'll say it's exhausting to hold this every day, it's actually the most challenging thing about the work that we do is to be the kind of people that invite friction every day. Because the gap is friction. The gap between where you said you were going and where you are is just friction. It's just the ability to go press up against it. Say, hang on, you're behind 3%. Why? Why aren't you spending what you said you were going to spend? Why is the efficiency not where it is? And you're going to watch. I deal with this every day. I sit next to a young man by the name of Anmar, who's one of our best growth strategists. And yet every day he will resist just slightly the reason why the efficiency isn't where it should be. Because it's so natural to accept like a victim disposition or something circumstantial. And these things are real. They're real circumstances. It's not that they're making things up. But the question is, so what? Now what? In light of that change or that unexpected performance or that campaign that didn't work like we hoped, or the creative that you don't have, that you're waiting for, that somebody told you they were going to deliver on the day, and you don't have, what are you going to do? How are you going to make it up? And that space is really powerful when you begin to sit in it and occupy it and go try and fix it. So be the friction, or let us help. It's what we train our people to do. It's what we think we can offer you importantly. You know, there's this funny sort of trope about McKinsey, right? That it's like they come in and they get to be the reason why people get fired, right? And I think what that really is that most of the time organizations are resistant to conflict, and it's necessary conflict. And so sometimes a partner is good for that. To be the third party that says, hey, hang on, what are we doing today to do this? And if I'm a CEO, what I want is as many people that create friction for the sake of the goal as possible. I want as many humans showing up and being as dissatisfied with the gap to the goal as I know I feel as a CEO. You know, there's this funny, like people at CTC know very well that like if there's any deficit to what we call our sandbox, it's our real-time view of the P&L, that like my mood is directly proportional to the size of that gap. Like it just is. That's what I've learned to drive towards. And so what happens is that becomes infused into everyone, right? And so eventually they become dissatisfied when there's a gap. And that's what you want as a leader, is that you want people who are on the hook and connected to that expectation. So things like giving them visibility every day. Red and green is a powerful indicator. Nobody likes getting an email every day, knowing that your CEO's on it, knowing that your CFO's on it, and seeing that there's, hey, everything's red. Because what creates for you is when you receive that email at 7:30 a.m., and I know the CFO got it, and I know the CEO got it, I better damn well have something that I'm saying I'm doing to reconcile that gap. Otherwise, it will be obvious that it's negligence. So all these little pieces of the system, the great modeling, the clear expectations, the good data, the integration of the marketing calendar, the qualitative and quantitative, combined with the daily emails that show up to everyone, all the tooling and visibility for every person on the team to where they're supposed to go, all how the accountability occurs. Partnership between the systems, the tools, and the people to get towards the outcome.